Dear students, it's me, Lyndon Sir. I am your English teacher for the following days. I hope all are fine and strictly following government rules and all are in quarantine. For class 7th, you have mainly three books: New Buzzword textbook, Supplementary reader, and a New Grammar with Smile. Today, let's begin with main course book. In main course book, seven main themes are there. First theme is Wonders of Travel. In this theme, two chapters and one poem is there. First chapter named as Darwin Diaries. Actually, this is an excerpt from Charles Darwin by Alan Gibbons. Yes, he is the naturalist, biologist, and he is the author of Origin of Species. He given lot of contribution to biology and science. He given a clear introduction about evolution of human being. A small excerpt means a small piece of writing. Actually, the main author is who? Charles Darwin. A small portion is given for you as there in the textbook. That is written by Alan Gibbons. Let's know who is this Alan Albert Gibbons. Alan Albert Gibbon is an English writer of children's books. In 2000, he won the Blue Peter Book Award in the book I Could Put Down category for Shadow for the Miniature. In the beginning of the chapter, there is a small activity given for you, warm-up activity, that is a travel brochure. A small piece of information about the travel wherever you want to go, what all the things you like most, all are given for you. Actually, this is the piece of activity you can do by yourself. In the beginning of the chapter, Darwin Diaries, a small introduction is given for you with some pics. Let's see which are the things. Iguana, crab, albatross. Under that, two questions are provided for you. Where would you expect to find these animals? Iguanas are usually expected to be found in forest and sometimes in islands. Crabs are found in sandy and rocky beaches, and albatross can be found in across the seas. This is a story of 5-year-long historic expedition of British naturalist Charles Darwin, based on which Darwin wrote his famous book on the origin of species. This account is narrated by 10-year-old James Kincaid through a series of entries in his diary. James is thrilled to have been chosen as assistant to Darwin on the voyage aboard HMS Beagle. He helps Darwin collect information on different creatures during the journey. In this extract, James, now 15, recounts their voyage to the Galapagos Island between 15th September and 20th October 1835. So I hope you got a clear introduction about the chapter. This chapter deals with travel, isn't it? Who traveled, who all are the persons combined with our main author, Darwin, all are given for you. So James Kincaid, a boy, is an assistant for whom? Our Darwin. So they are traveling in HMS Beagle, that is a ship of the Royal Navy. Let's begin. We have left South America and are about to arrive at the Galapagos Island. There are 15 of them altogether, 600 miles from the coast of Ecuador. They are all formed from volcanic rocks and straddle the equator. Straddle means exist on either side. Mr. Darwin is delighted at the prospect of seeing the Galapagos. He says that the collection of islands is a perfect little world by itself. He is eagerly looking forward to exploring them more than anywhere else on our journey. So in the first paragraph itself, we can see James Kincaid is narrating about the interest and the natural beauty of that Galapagos Island and the interest of whom our Charles Darwin. He is excited with his own world. He wants to explore more and more. Who is that person? Charles Darwin. So James Kincaid narrating that this is a perfect world, perfect little world. Which world? Galapagos Island is a perfect little world. Moving on, we landed in high surf today on northeast coast of Chatham Island. We waded ashore through the icy water only for our clothes to be dried immediately once on land by the morning heat. To our surprise, everything here seems very dark. The beach is made of dark colored lava. The land all around is jagged and buckled. The only vegetation is the stunted brushwood, scorched by the sun. There are craters and streaming vents everywhere. I have never seen anything like this before. The geographical features and the natural vegetation of Chatham Island is given in this paragraph. In the above paragraph, we already studied about Galapagos Island. In this paragraph, we are studying about Chatham Island. It's Chatham Island, not Chatham Island. Please don't pronounce in wrong way. It is Chatham. So the Chatham Island is made of dark colored lava and the land is all around jagged and buckled. Sharp pointed bend is there, isn't it? And another special feature is streaming vents everywhere. Vents are there and the craters are there. Craters means if there is an explosion with meteors, what will happen? A small bowl shaped holes will form. Same like that, this Chatham Island is made up of lava, dark colored lava, isn't it? The land is all around jagged and buckled. The only vegetation is stunted brushwood, small short brushwoods of plants are there. So let's see what all the living beings are associated with Chatham Island here. The barrenness of the land is deceptive. The sea around Chatham Island is swarming with fish, sharks, and turtles. The crew have been enjoying themselves fishing. The birds are unaccustomed to human company here. They hop up very close, ignoring the pebbles that are being thrown at them. It is even possible to prod to catch them. So the description says that human beings are firstly going there in Chatham Island, I think. Maybe they are the first persons who firstly visited there. That's why these birds are unaccustomed with the human companies. They are not familiar with the human beings. That's why these birds are very much close and near to human company, and they are not aware regarding that human beings have what hands they will throw pebbles to them. So they don't have such idea. That's why they are very much freely and closely moving towards to human beings. So do you know why was it possible to catch the birds on Chatham Island? So it was possible to catch the birds on Chatham Island because they were not used to human company and would ignore the pebbles that were thrown at them. Moving on, fourth paragraph. Today we came across the seagoing iguana. This creature swarms in its hundreds over the rocks. The iguana is very tame. It will put up with being prodded and poked. Mr. Darwin even picked one up, swung it around his head, and threw it into a rock pool. It just pickled itself up again and waddled back to where it had been lying as if nothing had happened. Mr. Darwin threw it back into the rock pool. When the creature returned, he repeated the operation. Once more, the iguana plodded back to its place. Mr. Darwin concluded that whereas European lizards have learned to fear man, These iguanas have failed to develop the hereditary instinct. The iguana saw the side of the rock pool as a safe sanctuary, so it kept returning to it, even though Mr. Darwin insisted on throwing it back in the pool. So, in the island, in the sharp protruding rock, these iguanas are resting there. They are in hundred of them. One of the iguana picked by whom our Darwin aunt rounded its tail and threw into the sea. But after some time, this iguana naturally gone near to that pointed end of the rock and resting there. They also didn't show their fear to human beings because they are also not aware regarding human activity, isn't it? So this operation, which operation Darwin threw some of the iguanas to the sea pool, but they slowly returned back and safely landed in the rock itself. Some while later, we came across the land's biggest inhabitants, the huge Galapagos tortoises. We had been trudging through the weedy vegetation when we came across a kind of path between the cinders and the cacti. Turning up one of these paths, we finally met a pair of tortoises face to face. They must have weighed at least 200 pounds each. So the travelers in HMS Beagle, they tried to trudging in the back of tortoise. So the Galapagos tortoises are the biggest inhabitants there. As we approached, one was eating a cactus. The other gave a grumpy hiss and walked away. I tried riding its back. Do you know who is this I? James Kincaid itself. Through the tortoise didn't seem at all concerned or even aware that I was perched on its shell. I was unable to balance and kept slipping off and landing with a thump. Midshipman King also had a go at riding the tortoise, but they ended up sprawled in an inelegant heap just as I had. So the officer of the HMS Beagle also tried to trudge this tortoise, but he also landed down as whom as James Kincaid. So let's see, why do you think the tortoise didn't seem concerned or even aware of the fact that James was trying to ride on its back? The tortoise did not seem concerned or aware of the fact that James was trying to ride on its back because, like the other animals on the island, the Galapagos tortoise too was not used to the company of the humans. Moving on, fifth paragraph. On Albemarle Island, we came across a second species of iguana. So, a third island named Albemarle Island. There also iguanas are there, but not like the exact of Chatham Island. In contrast to its cousin on Chatham Island, this is a land-based reptile. It is just as unaccustomed to people as the seagoing iguana on Chatham Island. In the Chatham Island, these iguanas will live in the sea and the land also. But our Albemarle Island iguanas are not usually lying in the sea itself. Mr. Darwin watched one of them burying itself in a burrow. When it was halfway underground, he pulled its tail. So, in Albemarle Island, Darwin seen one iguana. He is there in the burrow itself. So during that time, he tried to pull its tail outside. The iguana emerged to see what the matter was. It clearly wanted to know what was impeding its progress, and it started hard at Mr. Darwin as if to say, "What are you playing at?" In that attitude, in that manner, our iguana in the Albemarle Island watched whom? Darwin. But it wasn't afraid. It hadn't yet learned to fear people. In that iguanas also, in the Albemarle Island also iguanas are there. They are also not afraid of human beings. Moving on, sixth paragraph. James Island was the last island we visited. Mr. Darwin was particularly interested in the finches. Finches means small resident birds with colorful plumages. Their habits were varied. Some of them lived on cacti and some on insects and leaves. Some stayed on the ground while others lived in the trees. Mr. Darwin had them all sketched. He would lay out the sketches and point out the way they all had beaks suited to their particular diet. Some had long pointy beaks, while others had shorter, heavier ones. He sat watching the wildlife and smiled. So in the James Island, special feature or special interested thing is what finches itself. Some has sharp pointy beaks, some has short itself. Why do you think Darwin smiled as he sat there watching the wildlife? So maybe Darwin smiled as he sat watching the wildlife because he was appreciating the beauty of diversity, maybe enjoying the natural vegetation of these islands, isn't it? Especially which island? Galapagos Island. So under this Galapagos Island itself, three main short islands are there: Chatham Island, Albemarle Island, and James Island. As we sailed away from the islands, some of the officers told Mr. Darwin that they had seen different birds and tortoises on different islands. This has provided him food for thought. Food for thought means something worth seriously thinking about. He calls the Galapagos the land that time forgot. I have a feeling it is a land he will remember all his life.